Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Today, I would like to do kind of a live Q&A. If you've got some questions, just toss them down to me in the chat below. You can see above my head I have a piece of music. If we don't have any specific questions in the group, then I'm going to do an analysis of Francisco Tarrega's study in C. Got my electric guitar today. I left the classical at the office because sometimes when I get out of the office late, I just don't want to carry a thousand things back and forth from my car. So there's that. So we'll be using the electric guitar today, and I will be taking questions, also asking you, what do you want to drill? I'm thinking about a format for these morning lessons so that I can be a little more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? A little more predictable. Welcome, Ton. Welcome, Ton. How you doing today? Today I'm taking questions, or if there are no pressing questions, we'll drill intervals, chords, whatever you guys want to do, or I'm going to do a musical analysis of the piece on the screen, which is it's a nice piece by Francisco Tarrega, and I might put up a full lesson video on it shortly. I'll have time to start doing the classical guitar lesson videos again once I finish all the recordings from my book, which should be tomorrow. So simile, real quick, Drummer in the Park asked, I was playing a piece that has this word simile. So if I see my mouse is going around that word. Simile means it means similar. So here we have the right hand picking pattern, P-I-M-A-M-I-A, right? Or A-M-I, so P-I-M-A-M-I, A-M-I, A-M-I. And it says simile. That means to use that picking pattern throughout the piece until otherwise notated. So simile will, you can use simile for fingerings, for dynamics, for all kinds of things. It just means play similarly. Ingy is here as well. Ingy, today I'm doing questions, if anybody has any. And if there are no pressing questions, I'm going to go ahead and do a musical analysis of Francisco Tarrega's study in C, which is a really nice piece, and it wouldn't be a bad idea for us to do this at some point soon anyhow. This study is a great one to do an analysis of because, one, it's in C major, which is the key that we've been working in lately, and I like the idea of getting to know a key first. However, this one also borrows from other keys, so we can talk about some really interesting stuff. So I don't see any questions down there aside from Drummer in the Park. So let's just go ahead and go through this piece and do a little bit of a musical analysis. I have my electric guitar today, guys, because I left the classical at the office. I got out a little bit later, and sometimes Colorado, it's very cold at night, and I don't want to put my really nice classical guitar in a cold car. So, all right. So, Francisco Tarrega's study in C major. I'm going to go ahead and ask the audience if you guys can guess what the first chord is. What is its Roman numeral? You guys, just a few moments. And the best way to do this is to first get an inventory of the notes, right? So the notes that we have C, G, C, and E. So those are all iterations of C, E, or G. So this gives us our one chord, the one chord. And if you play it, you see we have the basic C shape. Now this being my electric guitar, it's not going to sound as clear as my classical, but we have the C shape here. Right? And if you look, we get bum, 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 bum. So we get open E, then a high G on there, and an open E. So that's really our melody here. So the point of this etude is actually to teach you how to make a melody sing out over chords and accompaniment. And that's going to be somewhat difficult to do on this electric guitar because the amplifier compresses the sound a bit, but right, so there's our first measure. That is the one chord. Everybody's got it. Very good. Very good. Next measure you'll see is exactly the same. So we get that first measure twice. Right? And if we keep moving, we're going to run into this beautiful little measure here. So anybody have a guess as to what chord this is? What chord do we have here? Not quite, Angie, not quite. So something about this chord, heads up. One of the notes that you see on the screen does not belong to the chord. Now, there's a good reason for it, and I'm going to explain that to you in a moment, but we are actually dealing with a G7 here, and here, this is why you can tell it's a G7. So first off, we've got a G for the root, right, and we have a G and a B. He's actually leaving the D completely out of this chord, so it's not very rare in guitar music to leave out the fifth. You know, this is not the piano. Some voicings, like we've talked about in the past, would require, you know, a pinky that is just extremely long to get the exact voicing you want. So he's leaving the D out. And even on pianos, it's not super rare to leave the fifth out. And he has an A up here. This is what's called a non-chord tone. Okay, sorry, there's a delay there. I think I have my settings on. Angie says she was in the first measure, so you were correct in the first measure, by the way. My settings say that there should be no delay, but I'll wait a little bit longer for the chats to come in before I call out anyone's answers. I'm still getting used to the live stream too myself, so my bad, Angie. All right, so we have 3rd fret, and this A up here is what's called a accented non-chord tone. So you have this on one of the stronger beats, and it does not belong to the chord. But what happens is when you have this note that doesn't belong to the chord, it actually wants to pull you to a note that does belong in the chord, and preferably one that's close. So here we go. Yes, Drummer in the Park, these are all triplets, so it goes da 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 da. And this G7 chord, we get this F makes it the G7. So G7 is G, B, D, F. Oh, okay, Angie, I totally understand what you're saying now. You're at the beginning of the video. So these are all triplets, right? And we get this F that gives us G, B, D, F. That makes it the G7. Now, if you guys have seen my music theory video, the hour-long one, we have a tritone here in this chord. Can anybody tell me where the tritone is? The tritone is between B and F, right there, B and F. And it's a pretty crass kind of sound. And the F wants to move down to an E, and the B wants to move up to an E. So a tritone, just like so. Right? So when we're playing through this chord, so we have a tension here, it resolves, nice resolution. And then we have a tension here, and then the next measure is going to have a C major chord. Right here, same as the first measure. So one thing, you guys see tabs down here. I don't generally like to use tabs on my YouTube channel. But the publisher that will be putting this out for me requires tabs, so I had to make a copy with tabs. So we have, right, and that's our resolution there. So we get overall one chord, then 5/7. 1. let's move on to the next measure. All right. Can anybody take a wild guess as to what chord we have here on the screen? Give you guys a moment. This is E7. Now, where is this coming from? We have a G sharp. This isn't in key. This is where he starts to borrow. So what we get next is, and this G sharp's out of key, and what it does is it wants to move up to the A, right? So Ton says the tritone was between the D and the F. You're close. It's between the B and the F. The B and the F. So the 7 and the 4. So the rest above the bass note there, that tells you how long until the other voices come in. So here's one of the things about guitar music that a classically trained musician will understand differently than a musician that is comping chords and stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, but let's just examine the idea of classical music and apply it to the guitar. So classical music is all about having voices that move in and out of each other at counterpoint, right? So we actually have some actors, some different actors in this play that we're presenting on our guitar. So we have the bass voice here, which is that low E. You can just imagine a guy belting out that low E. Now, we have the people that are giving us some background accompaniment, and that's our B and D here. And then we have our melody, which goes da, da, da. So what we get when we put it all together, and you actually, the bass has a different tone. I keep these middle ones quiet because they're just providing the backup, and then this high one sings out over it. So when you're running into these rests, it's to show you which voices start where. And it is also to point out what the voices are. So if we notated this all in triplets, that would mean technically this E, this low E that's ringing, would have to stop when that D starts. So it'd sound more like, and that's kind of weird sounding, right? So I hope that answers that question. So this is an E7 chord. Now, we're borrowing this from the key of A minor because the next chord is going to be an A minor. This G sharp is really the out of key note, and it wants to move up to an A, right? So even if I'm playing the C major scale and I just throw in a G sharp out of nowhere, if we get, right, so ba, 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 ba. That G sharp wants to move up to A, and if I even can continue, so that's what he's doing, but he's throwing it right into the chord. So E, G sharp, B, and D, resolving to A minor. So if we move forward, we get A minor, which is our 6th chord. So what you would call this is 5 of 6. 5 of 6 is a chord that likes to resolve to 6. So we're going to see some other 5 ofs coming up, but the bottom line is we have a tritone between G sharp and D, and they like to resolve, right? And actually, I didn't resolve that correctly. We need a C. That's the effect that we're getting. And you'll see that the next chord will actually be an A minor, which goes, so we have, and next, after that A minor, which is our 6th chord, and I'll show you here, we have A, C, E, A. And what happens is this is our bar chord here, right? This is voicing 4, but just a piece of voicing 4. And you're going to grab also this minor 3rd above it. So we have, and next we're going into A D chord. Can anybody tell me what kind of D chord this is? This D chord is a D7. Using an altered version of shape 5. So D major is shape 5. This D7 is shape 5, which goes root 5th, and then instead of a 4th, we're going to do a 3rd, right? And then an augmented 4th. And there's another tritone here that pulls us to G. So we're borrowing this from the key of G. So when you're writing music and you have a chord that you really, you want it to show up with some extra gusto, go to the key of that chord and pull the 5 out of it. The 5/7 is even better, but at very least the 5 of it. Now, here we have 5 of 5, the D7, resolving to the 5, G. And you'll see that the next measure is actually our G chord, right here. And this is shape 3. We're just leaving out, so we have 3, 3, 4, right? 4, or 4, 3, 6. So we're just leaving out the top 3s, the low end 3s. And we're taking root and we're doing octave 3rd 6. So if you guys remember from all the shapes that we drilled earlier in the week, these chords are actually following these shapes. So when we go to the second half, I'm going to pause it for a second and ask if anyone has questions before we move on to the second half. All right, second half we start off with a G7 here. The G7 has a tritone, but he's trying to have this idea where we have a nice melody. So we get F, so we start, and that 5/7 brings us to 1 because we have a tritone between B and F that, like in the beginning that we saw, that resolves to C. All right, then we go here. Right, this is another 1, and now the non-chord tone is that F. Right? So NG says GBF instead of GBD. Yeah, so really one thing that you should keep in mind, NG, is when you're building chords and composing music, especially if you have a 7 chord, it's not super rare to leave the 5 out, the 5th of that chord. In this case, that would be D. So we get, really D is just not super necessary for that chord. The F, however, is required, and so is the B, and so is the G. And with the guitar, you only have so many options. So to get good voice leading and just a good type of rich sound out of it, you're going to have to probably make some sacrifices on the guitar that you may not need to make with an orchestra or like the piano or something. But anyways, it is a G7 because of that F, because F is 7 over G. And that brings us to C, back to C. And instead of going up here to the G, now he goes up to the F. Right, because now we're getting these neighbor tones. So we start on a tone that belongs to the chord, we go to its neighbor, and we come back. And da, da, da. And next, we have another borrowed chord. This is why this piece is really cool to look at, because these borrowed chords are going to tell you how, how we are actually going to eventually branch out into other keys through our drills that we've been doing. So here we have what's called B7. Now this one's also leaving out the 5th note. This one's it should have an F. Well, actually, never mind. It's not leaving out the 5th note. What note are we missing? Because there's an octave. It's actually leaving out the 3rd. So that happens. I mean, this is the guitar. But what's important is that this B and the F sharp kind of ring together, as well as the A. And if you listen to this A, it's really going to want to resolve down to your G. So, right. So what we have, and it will go down to low E. So what this is borrowing from E minor. So E minor is our third chord. You would name this 5 of 3. Really, more specifically, 5/7 of 3. B, there should be a D sharp. So really, the traditional B7 has this first fret here. He's just leaving it out. B, D sharp, F sharp, and A. And we're going to move to the 3 because this is 5/7 of 3, E minor. And he's actually taking the F sharp. He's going to continue to borrow from E minor throughout this measure so that we get this another neighbor tone. Right, so with the B7, the neighbor tone was the G. And this one, the neighbor tone is the F sharp, right? And this is E, G, B, our E minor chord. And then we come here to our 4 chord, the F major chord. Right? And after that, I think, I hope this isn't the addition that I had with there in it. No, it's not good. Okay, so then we have, right, so this F major is your 4 chord, and then it actually goes to a 1 chord in second inversion. So this is preparing us for a perfect cadence. It's very common to see a piece of music close where you get 1-6-4, which is the 1 chord in second inversion, then a 5/7, and then a 1. Now the reason that the 1-6-4 comes before the 5/7 is because you're actually using the same bass note for both chords, and it's almost like your ear wants to hear the 5 chord, and it gets part of it in the bass, but it also gets the 1 chord up top, which kind of feels like it still needs to move somewhere. Then we get the proper bass note, right? So we get 1 in first inversion, and then our 5/7 thing that we had earlier, the boom, bum, 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 bum. So then we move back to 1 ultimately, and that's the end of the piece. So I'm going to give you guys a few moments to send some questions in my way. I won't be online for much longer this morning because lots of recording and teaching to do today. Bit of a time crunch this week. So I hope that eventually I can get the live streams to do an entire hour every day. But for now, it's going to range between a half hour and an hour. So I'm going to let you guys type in some questions. Remember, this is really good to do on a regular basis, is just to open up a score and start to analyze it. I think what I'm going to do is at the beginning of every week, I'm going to upload a score to the Fretboard Dojo so that everybody can sit down and write in the chords. And then at the end of the week, what I'm going to do is do an analysis on the live stream. And I think that's probably a pretty good thing to do. So let me know below if you like that idea as well. So for my dojo members, you guys will see the score in the members area and the Facebook. You can download it directly and sit down and try and figure out what the chords are, and then I'll walk you all through it at the end of the week live on YouTube. Drummer in the Park asked, do you find scores of these pieces online or buy them? So this score, I put this one together, but I source my scores from what's called the IMSLP, which is an online public library. Everything's public domain, right? There's no copywritten material up there, But the public domain stuff, you can find everything. It's a ton of class. It's so much class. It's more classical music than you can stuff in one lifetime. And they also, they have a way to donate as well. So you should definitely give them some money if you use their service. But I find the scores there, and then I edit them with my own fingerings to get the scores here that I present on the screen. So Ingy asks, there are 4 triplets in one measure. Which ones are chords? How are we to decide which chord it is? So I want to introduce a really important idea to you, Ingy. And this is, I want you to take a couple days to let this sink in, because this is a super foundational thing that a lot of the times is glossed over anywhere but the university. So what happens is chords are, so don't think of chords as something being on a guitar, right? Chords are actually when multiple melodies at once are forming harmony, right? So these triplets, technically, all of them are chords. You have to see what all the notes are cumulatively in the measure to decide what chord you're dealing with. So the melody up top is actually still a part of the chord. The bass note down below is actually still a part of the chord, and those middle notes are still part of the chord as well. They're actual melodies that are kind of running independent of each other. So, for example, if I were to play each of these melodies independently on this measure, the bass note goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now the G, the next G is going to be on the and of every triplet. So it goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right? And then the B is on the of every triplet. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then with the melody up top, we get on the 2 and 3 and 4. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and right? And if you have those voices all going on at once, the only way to achieve it is to arpeggiate them on the guitar, right? But you could actually take these chords and say, all right, I'm going to actually change this music into a choir thing and have all the people sing those. On the guitar, we're arpeggiating it because that's the way it works. But that's how chords come together on the guitar. There's what's called voice leading, right? And in fact, I'm going to probably be doing a lot of voice leading exercises coming up. I wanted to run a couple ideas by you guys because you gave me some great feedback last time. But I want to see, Tan Rafa asks, any suggestion for good software for arranging or for what? I use my software. I use Sibelius. I use Ableton Live. And to do the live streams, I use OBS Studio. But in all honesty, I know a lot more about music than I know about musical gear. So I'm not always the best person to ask about even like what brand of guitar is the best one, right? I'm really absorbed in the music, but I don't even have. I have like 2 pairs of pants. Like I'm not much of a collector. So I don't know a lot about the brands and stuff. I just have a couple really nice guitars. Ingy, you are very, very welcome. Please, all questions are very, very welcome here. There's no question that I don't want to take. I can't always promise that I can answer every question because I am a human being. But any question you guys want to run by me, either I will answer it or I will hunt down the answer if I don't already have it. Okay, guys, so here's the last suggestion that I want to run by you. Again, this series of lectures, I want to cater it to what you guys need with my whole heart. That's what I want. So the way I'm thinking about formatting this, I want to do what I said before, where I upload a score at the beginning of the week. You guys can download it and do the analysis, and at the end of the week I run you through it. And perhaps Monday through Thursday, the format I would like to do is I'll start with our warm-up calisthenics. So I'll put a poll up on the video, and you guys can vote whether or not we do note finding, chord identification, or interval identification. And we'll do that for about 10 to 15 minutes. After that, we're going to do maybe one sight reading example. And after that, I'm going to introduce my new concept, composition templates, where we're going to have blank staff paper where I've filled out the chords or perhaps the bass line or something, and I'm going to take however much time throughout the live streams to fill one out entirely, and then you guys can download the blank templates and write your own music with it. So let me know what you think about that, because that sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds like a lot of fun to me. And there would be a lot of these uploaded eventually. Composition templates just sound like a blast. And you guys can actually really write some cool music using them. So I'm going to close with that, guys, that announcement. Let me know in the comments section below what you think about that format for these live streams. I will also probably be live streaming my classical guitar lessons. However, I will pre-record the performance because I want to have a good recording if it's going up permanently on YouTube. And what I'd like to do with that is perhaps all of Fernando Soar's Opus 60, because I love the Opus 60 by Fernando Soar. I'll probably do Opus 60 by Matteo Carcassi as well, one at a time. I'm also thinking, some suggestions would be good. Giuliani, there's I think it's Opus 50 something that I'll probably go through one at a time. So Tan Rafa, I actually do teach ukulele, Tan Rafa. I teach that as well as banjo. The thing about being a classical guitarist is if you can tell me what tuning it's in and put some sheet music in front of me, or just tell me what tuning it's in, I'll figure it out and I can find my way around. So perhaps one of these days I will do a fun little ukulele tutorial. Maybe not soon, but one of these days. Wim Mertens. I'm not sure who that is, drummer in the park. He asks, do you like Wim Mertens? I don't know anything by him. So if you could actually link a good example of his music to me in the comments down there after the live stream shuts off, I will get to listening to it. It won't be today because I've got 5.5 hours of teaching, roughly 2.5 hours time to record some music, and I have a meeting with a company that I do a few kind of marketing tasks for later in the evening. But yeah, send me a link if he's a pianist. I would love to hear it. Just put the link down in the comments in the video after it gets posted to the channel. All right, guys, I got to get running. The dog looks like she wants to go catch the Frisbee. Alina, where you at? You want to meet my dog, everybody? Alina, come here. Up here. Come on. Come on. We're going to close with you guys meeting my dogs. If I'm going to be doing these live streams at home, she'll probably at some point creep in. Come here. Come here. What are you doing? All right. Come here, little doggy. This is the doggy. We're going to cut out of the live stream just like this.